What's going on, YouTube? How you doing? Today I have another installment of AskTVK where you can ask me whatever you want and I will answer it to the best of my ability. High-pitched sounds outside. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm in the middle of the Sphinx tour, so I'm sorry that I've been slower to upload. I will do my best to do a little bit better, but I'm just so tired. We have 3 concerts today. Anyway, that's enough griping. Today's question comes from MusicCat is dead, and it comes from Facebook as well. You know, you can come to my fan page on facebook.com and find me. Ask questions there as well. MusicCat is dead asks, I am slightly afraid that studying music will spoil the fun in it. I am not particularly good or extremely talented, so I am afraid that I will lose the wonderful hobby of doing music and in return only get a very hard job. I also noticed that the more I practice, the harder it is to get up and practice all those scales, etudes and finger exercises for hours. So yeah, is it worth it? And MusicCat is dead, that is such a great question. I'm actually gonna break it into 3 different parts. So let's address the first part, music being very hard and you're not being very talented. Well, to make a life in music, you don't have to be talented. And honestly, between you and me, you don't even have to be that good. But I'm not gonna name any names. All joking aside, being good at music just takes work. And you have to be really, really, really careful about how you work. It takes slow, thoughtful practice day in and day out. And there has to be a general love for music that outweighs the pain in the of practice. And that's something that a lot of people don't get. They think music is fun, but they only like it when they don't have to work. And if you feel like you don't like music when you have to put in the hard work to cultivate your skill, to create something powerful and meaningful, and you just like it as a hobby, then maybe it should stay as a hobby. Because I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. Music is hard. Doing music is really hard. And going to music school is going to be probably one of the hardest things you're ever going to do. Not to mention all the social sacrifices you'll have to do, the sleeping sacrifices you'll have to do, and sometimes even the academic sacrifices that you'll have to go through. And then once you're done with school, you're going to have to go, if you want to do orchestra, you're going to have to go through a rigorous auditioning process that can end up being very expensive and can end up being very emotionally draining. And that kind of leads me to the second part of your question. The fact that you will lose the hobby and end up working in a very hard job. For me, the language you're using, the fact that you think of music as a hobby or you're describing it as that, tells me that you're really not probably wanting to do this as a career. So what I would suggest is that you maybe pursue music as a hobby and keep it there and don't pursue it professionally. Because honestly, yes, when you study something very intensely, you start getting to see the bare bones of it. You start understanding and seeing an aspect of it that no longer makes it magic. It's like going into medicine or going into any type of field where you work with the body. You don't know all of the different myriad of things that could go wrong with your body. You just know that you sometimes get sick and sometimes you're sore. But when you go into the study of biology and medicine, you realize, oh man, my liver could fail, my kidneys could fail, my eyeballs could pop out of my face if I don't do this certain thing. Like you discover some really crazy stuff. And if you're not into the curing aspect of that, if you're not passionate about that, you might not want to discover and jump down that rabbit hole. Music is the same way. You may not care about secondary dominance or the Neapolitan or the German augmented sixth, and learning about all that stuff is going to take the magic away from music, the wonder, the mystery. And honestly, if you're thinking about it as a hobby, that may not be the best thing for you. So maybe you shouldn't go into music, and that's fine, but I will say that you need to stay playing your instrument. You know, I really think that it'll be something very healthy for you in the long run if you just keep it as a hobby. Before I go into the last point, I want to identify the fact where you said get a hard job, and I'm gonna burst your bubble. There's no such thing as an easy job, especially if you want to do something super well. Everything, no matter what field you go into, everything is going to be hard. What is different about that is whether or not your love for that art or for that craft or for that trade outweighs the difficulty of it. And I really want you to keep that in mind, because nothing is really going to be easy. You're gonna have to work for anything in your life if you want to be the best at it, and if it really will be rewarding. Okay. And the last part of your question, you notice that it's getting harder for you to practice and do your etudes and finger exercises and things like that for hours. And I also want to address, if you love music, and if I'm wrong about all of these assumptions that I've created about you and your love for music, if it's hard to get up and practice, I want you to change your mindset about practice. Practicing isn't about all these exercises. Practicing isn't about doing etudes. Practicing is about creating musical ideas more effectively. And if you do your practice very efficiently, you don't have to practice those scales and exercises for hours, because you'll learn the tools to create musical ideas that come straight from your mind and give them straight to the audience. And a couple of things that I do to get myself to practice is just forcing myself to get started. Once I get started, it's a lot easier. Getting started is the hardest part of practice, I promise you that. And what I also do is I create lots of breaks. I never practice for more than 45 minutes, and I give myself a reward afterwards. For me, I love to play video games, or I love to watch TV or YouTube, and so what I do is that I allot myself a certain amount of time after every practice session to do what I want to do. You pair the things you want to do with the things you don't want to do. It's kind of like eating meat with your vegetables. I love meat, but I hate vegetables. But if I eat them together, it's alright. It's gonna be okay. But anyway, Music Hat is Dead. I hope that answered your question, and I hope you got some closure out of this. If you think this was super valuable, smash that like button. And if you have a question you want answered, shoot me a message on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, using the hashtag AskTVK, and I will do whatever I can to get the answer straight to you. If you have more questions on how to tackle music or life, check out my last video. Here's a clip. You should record your practice. Honestly, recording your practice is probably one of the fastest ways to get better, because you can listen to how you sound and you can really identify, maybe not things auditorily because you're building your knowledge base, but you can see places where you get really tense. And you can find, okay, I get really tense in this part of the song, so let me work on releasing and being more loose and being more relaxed.